So who do we have today in this slot? We have Cate Huston from Ireland, DRIing your career. Let's see what we know of her. She leads client engineering at DuckDuckGo. She is the author of Engineering Leader. She is a coach, and she is also an advisor at Twill. When I asked her, what is the golden nugget developers shall know these days, she said, nobody cares more about your career than you. Take ownership. So please welcome on stage our next speaker, Cate Huston.
Thanks. Hello. How are you all doing? Good. I'm going to require a small amount of audience participation, so just start preparing yourselves. How are you all doing? Amazing. It's day 2. Is anybody else fed up of people and wants to be alone forever? Just me? No. Okay. All right. I need my slides. Okay. There we go. It lives. All right. Can you raise your hand if you have had a good manager? Oh, so many of you. Keep it up if you currently have a good manager. How many people's managers are here? Okay. All right. So let me guess what these managers did, right? Did they give you feedback? Yeah? Did they support you? Did they help you find opportunities? This guy over here is really lucky. He keeps raising his hand. Good job. It's really nice when you have somebody who does this for you. Write that person a note later and let them know that the impact they've had. But I also think we should talk about when you don't have somebody like that. When your manager is busy or distracted or they just don't know how to do these things. Maybe they do some of them, but there are things that you know that you're missing. And maybe you're not getting what you want, and you're not sure why. Or maybe you just don't know what you want. Does anybody relate with that? OK. Some nodding. All right. Well, then, I'm so happy for everybody with a good manager, but I just don't think we can rely on having a good manager all of the time. So we need to prepare for the times when we don't. But first, let's start with a quick and universally applicable detour and talk about raccoons. So there is this subculture on Instagram. This is the only reason why I still have Instagram. And it's these people who have raccoons as pets. Has anybody else seen this? Just me? You're in. Oh, OK, good. We can be friends. The rest of you are in for a treat later. And these raccoons are so pampered. They are just living a life of utmost raccoon luxury. There is one called Melanie. She was riding a trike. And there was another called Piper. She paints and sells her paintings. And then finally, there's a raccoon called Tamer. I don't fully understand it because it's all in Russian. But he seems to have a lucrative career in advertising, mostly pet and cleaning products. Although he also now has his own crypto. So now I'm just worried he's another corrupt cult leader. And I love raccoons, but I would never take financial advice from one. Now, compare and contrast this with the Toronto raccoon subculture. In Toronto, the local government has been on this quest to try and make a raccoon-proof garbage bin. And now, obviously, they have failed because raccoons are smarter and more resilient than the average bureaucrat. But also, the inspiring thing about Toronto raccoons is that they thrive even in adverse conditions. They have to be more strategic, more determined, and more resilient. Does anybody know where I'm going with this? OK, this is not a random segue about raccoons. If it was, I would tell you that raccoons have the neuron density of a cat and a brain the size of a dog, and probably, definitely, show you a picture of the time I had a raccoon on my head. A great day. This is a metaphor. We, tech workers, we have been like the pampered raccoons that fill my Instagram feed. And right now, in this market, friends, I have to tell you, we live in Toronto now. Now, in this market, I think it's really easy to think that we have no power to shape our careers, that we're at the mercy of the market. But I really want to reframe this. In this market, I think it's even more important that we use the power that we do have in a deliberate way. Use it well. Now, being the DRI, directly responsible individual of your career, is about your ownership of your career. If you have a good manager like that guy, I'm so happy for you. But your career transcends the period of time that you'll spend with this person, and no one will ever care more about your career than you. This is not advice. This is things to think about, because only you can decide what's applicable to you and what's not. So, things we're going to talk about: understanding career decisions, setting and executing on career goals, becoming more coachable, and knowing when to leave. Now, our current job is a moment in the overall arc of our career, and as such, we should understand the current moment, this job, and what we're getting out of it, but also have some idea of what we want the overall arc to become. I think about this as expecting more from your career and less from your current job. Your career is more than your current job, and the thing to optimize for is not your current job, but the overall arc of your career. Sometimes jobs you don't enjoy meaningfully develop your skills. And sometimes jobs that you do enjoy are not developing you. And being clear about the distinction makes the trade-offs explicit, and it helps you make better decisions. Now, professional development plans are often produced during the review cycle and then forgotten. Has anybody done this? Just you? OK, more of you. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate the audience participation. It makes me feel less alone. But this makes them not very useful, right? You make them a review cycle, you forget about them. What's the point of that, right? But these things can be useful. The important thing is to define your proximate objectives, your next achievable goals, and then to build the kind of career and life that you want. So can you all think of a proximate objective or a career goal that you have? I'm going to wait. Do you have one yet? OK, good. All right. So now let's talk about what makes a good proximate objective. It should challenge you, but feel possible. You should learn something doing it. You should want to do it, and it should be within your control. Does anybody need to revisit your goal? Yeah, OK. That's fine. That's fine. We'll go again. It should challenge you, but feel possible. You should learn something doing it. It should be within your control, and you should want to do it. OK. Did your goal meet this criteria? And how many of you were thinking, get promoted? OK. That is not really within your control. This is the first problem with career goals, right? If the goal is something somebody else has to give us, then what is our work in that? Is it just convincing them? I am not anti-promotion. Promotions are great. But let's get real. Promotions are a level of capitalism, and capitalism is a con. A good goal for yourself is one where even if you fail at it, you learn something. And I am on the internet. You can send me all your goals. I really want to hear from them. Now, something that, oh, you know what? This is my favorite raccoon, so I'm going to take a drink whilst you admire them. All right. Now, something that is more in our control than we think is creating opportunities. I think of opportunities as being like flowers. Sometimes people give us flowers. That's great. Sometimes we pick flowers. And if we want to have flowers later, we better start planting them now. Now, what do I mean by planting? Well, if you want to give a talk, you're probably going to need to submit to some CFPs. If you want to be a manager, you're probably going to need to take on some team stuff like onboarding and documentation and that kind of thing. If you want to be a staff engineer, well, you probably need to go towards hard problems and really be very focused on continuing to level up your technical skills. Now, when you're picking flowers, you're picking from what you planted, and sometimes it comes from a long time before. You know, my book came out last year, and when I got the opportunity to write a book in 2023, this was a product of a lot of writing, a lot of thinking, a bunch of talks, all this stuff that I did on the side that like contributed to me having a profile and reputation where I could seem like somebody who could write a book. And you know, writing the book, super hard. There was just a year of my life where I didn't really have Saturdays. But like being a person who could write a book was also really hard. It was just much less apparent what I was working towards. Now, then there's the kind of opportunity that people give you, and you get to decide whether or not it's really an opportunity for you. And this is when I come back to flowers, right? If somebody wants to give me a rose, I'm all for it. But sometimes somebody's handing me a tulip, and you know what? My partner's Dutch. We have a lot of tulips. I don't always have room for more. And like, then I have to decide whether or not I'm going to take it. And sometimes somebody's offering me a dandelion, and I'm like, you know what? That's not for me. That's for somebody else. And when opportunity feels scarce, we can feel like we have to accept every opportunity that's offered to us. But this is why you need to learn how to create opportunity for yourself, how to put yourself out there in a way that is generative. I always encourage people to do the things that you actually like. Like, do you like writing? Do you like being on stage, giving a talk? Do you like meeting people? Do you like organizing things? Do you like debugging terrible problems that nobody else wants to look at? Like, follow the thing that you actually enjoy. You also need to learn to be discerning about what you take on and what you don't, right? There are entire books written about this, but I'll just say that when somebody asks you for something, it is a great time to negotiate. I used to get these speaking invitations that I thought of as token women invitations. Has anybody else got these? Yeah. And you know, it would always be late. I would look at the website, and I would just know. And it made me feel really bad, honestly. I would be like, wow, is this where the industry is at? Is this where I'm at, that my value is in being a token? And then I reframed them, and I started calling them negotiation practice instead. Now, when we're negotiating and going for things, we need to remember to keep some things in mind. Like, always remember that your job title is a couple of words, and the work is 40+ hours a week. Like, staff engineer. So many people want to be a staff engineer. I did too once upon a time, but I made bad choices. Now I'm a manager. And like, the title is a few words. And depending on the company, like being a staff engineer, I always explain to people being a staff engineer on one of my teams is like, you're going to fix a terrible problem whilst also shipping something. And like, not everybody wants to do that, and it is fine. It's fine if you don't want to do it now, you don't want to do it yet, but if you want that job title, you're going to have to choose. And this is one of the things that makes me most sad as a hiring manager. And I see people who are like really hung up on the job title, and I ask people like, what kind of work do you like to do? What do you value? What do you care about? And these things don't align with the title they think they want. And part of this is totally understandable. You know, people who've had to work extra hard for titles tend to hold on much more tightly to them. And I don't want to invalidate that. I just want to suggest that you don't hold on to a title at the expense of the work you actually do and the growth you get. Now, it's also important to think about what kind of moment you're in your life, right? It is completely normal to not be up for a challenge 100% of the time. Sometimes stability gives us something that we value more. Think about where you're at right now, honestly. Are you up for a big challenge? Do you really value stability? Do you just need some rest? If you think about your constraints, then you can write them down and discuss them with somebody you trust. Like, it's also a good idea to bring them to your manager. If you have constraints that you want to talk about, this is a great conversation. If you want to take on more responsibility but keep your workload manageable, tell them. The worst thing that will happen is they'll be like, that's not possible. But then at least you'll know. You know, and often much more is possible than you think. And like, candid conversations about constraints are the most efficient way to get there. So now we've talked about what approximate objective is, right? It's a challenge, but it's achievable. We know what we're anchoring on and why, and it's in proportion. And it aligns with where we're at in our life right now. Now, your career dreams are the further out ideas. You're like someday maybe things. These can be concrete or they can be directional. Does anybody have a career dream? At least 2 of you. You can inspire everybody else. I'm happy for you. Now, your proximate objectives are the next steps along the way. It is really nice to have dreams, right? To think about how our life will be when we have the job title we want, or we hold in our hands the book that we think we want to write. But we don't achieve things by dreaming about them. We achieve them by developing a strategy, identifying our proximate objectives and iterating on them as we learn, and executing. Now, your strategy is how you connect your proximate objectives to your career dreams. You identify the gaps between where you are now and where you want to be, and you come up with ideas that will help you get there. You don't have to have it all figured out. You do not need a 5-year plan. Some sense of direction that will help you make the next decision is enough. And I think it's also important to mention here that sometimes we're in an execution mode. We know what we're doing and we're going after it. And sometimes we might be in a more exploratory place where we're trying to figure out what we want next. And my book came out last year, and honestly, I don't have it in me for another big goal yet. Don't know if this is relatable to anyone, but I'm I do need some rest. And I'm trying to enjoy being in this exploratory phase where I try different things and I see what might spark joy, so that when I'm ready for the next big project, I know what I want it to be. Now, we tie it all together, and you get to write down your plan. So, first, what the goal is. A good what is specific enough that you know when you've achieved it, but it's broad enough that reaching it demonstrates a genuine expansion of your capability. Then you need a why, right? Why the goal is important to you. A good why is it's your underlying motivation. It's the thing you can look at when you're feeling discouraged and remember why this is important to you, why the what is worthwhile. What resources you have available to achieve this thing, and who will support you, who you can lean on, and what opportunities you have or can create for yourself. Now, at the start of this talk, we talked about good managers and what they do. But one of the problems with relying too much on your manager is that it's just not realistic to get all your needs met from one person. This is also true in romantic relationships, for what it's worth. But the more you can build your raccoon squad, your support system, the more resilient you will be. Toronto is a hard place to be a raccoon. Don't go alone. Now, obviously, your manager is part of the support system, but your skip-level manager, your manager's manager, they can have a lot more influence than you might expect, particularly in terms of finding opportunities. They just often have a broader reach and more information. Great peer relationships, so helpful. They can give you context, provide information you're missing. They can help you move things along, right? They can also be a good source of feedback. Mentors and sponsors, they're not necessarily part of your org chart, but these can be people that you turn to for advice, and even more importantly, people who advocate for you when you're not in the room. Now, coaches can be really helpful because it's one of the few places where you can have somebody in your life who shows up just invested in you, without the kind of baggage that comes with being part of the same organization or social circle. And finally, shout out to the work BFF, because data shows that our life is better when we have one. Okay, so becoming more coachable is about being open to change, taking available support, consciously expanding your perspective, and turning feedback into something actionable. If that sounds overwhelming, don't worry, we're going to break it down. Now, constructive feedback given at the right time can really help us grow, but it can be really hard to come by. Having a better relationship with feedback, understanding how to get it, how to make the most of what you obtain, can unlock more opportunities by just making you a more rewarding person to help. The goal is to maximize the context in which you can get feedback and the most actionable impact, and just know when to let things go. Now, feedback can feel very threatening, right? But you can shift your mindset so that feedback is just information. Now, sometimes it's information you can use to improve, sometimes it's information that just tells you much more about the person giving it, and sometimes it's information that needs to go in the trash. Now, when I think about growth, I think about drowning rats and boiling frogs. Does anybody else have this problem? And it's kind of a violent metaphor, but like I like it because I think this is how growth feels, right, when it's really hard, right? The rat drowning school of growth is that you put somebody in the deep end and fingers crossed, they'll figure out how to swim. And the frog boiling school of growth is like you put somebody in the water and you just keep turning the heat up, and eventually they become like heat resistant and resilient. Again, it's violent in a way that's not ideal, but like periods of hard growth, they feel hard, right? They feel kind of violent. And I think these metaphors kind of capture this feeling of like, can I do this? And can I sustain this? I like to write about what good management looks like, and I really try to be a good manager. But the truth is, even good managers are not good for everybody all of the time. They're operating under their own set of constraints and pressures, and so very few people get exactly what they want, exactly what they need, exactly when they need it. And everybody has their moments when they're struggling. And in these moments, like the best case is these are when we learn the most. And in the worst case, the best we can say about it is, I survived. Now, the question is, how do we make it more likely that we learn and grow as much as possible? Like, what resources are available to us? Now, in a given situation, you have your current capability and the capability you want to grow into. How big that gap is a huge part of how hard it is to close it, but your relationship with that gap and how you approach it has tremendous impact. Like, seeking out the help that you need. There's a really great book by Marcus Buckingham. It's called First Break All the Rules. And at the core of it is this relationship between strengths and weaknesses. And the core thesis of the book is that great managers focus on developing strengths. And they only focus on weaknesses when it's a controlling weakness, like it's a weakness that's holding the person back. And it is ideal if you have a manager who behaves like this with you, but you also can focus on developing your strengths. And your manager is not the only person that can help you. I think of the sweet spot of growth as being out of your comfort zone with help, and like this is about finding the right help. It's worth thinking about what help is available to you at different times and what you need. Now, in terms of the help available, we often talk about mentoring, managing, and coaching like they're interchangeable things, but they're not. Good managers use the right tool at the right time. A mentor is somebody who can help somebody learn a skill, right? And this is great and useful, but it's important to match the mentoring to like the level that somebody is at, right? So sometimes mentoring is like teaching somebody to swim in a swimming pool, and their day-to-day reality is they're drowning in the ocean. Like, this is not tremendously helpful. Now, in terms of approaching growth, this is my model of coachability. So coachability is made up of two things: receptiveness to feedback and actionability in response to that feedback, what you do with it. So what makes somebody highly receptive to feedback, right? We know the people that aren't. We all know the people that aren't, right? They respond defensively. They blame others. They don't take responsibility. We might call these desert people. They discount the value of the input or the person giving it. But in contrast, the people who are highly receptive to feedback, they listen and work through what the feedback is. They are self-aware and prepared. They can fit feedback into their mental model and adjust it accordingly. And they believe they can learn from anyone. Now, similarly, we know exactly what people not acting on feedback looks like, right? They make minimal changes or adjustments. They make any changes they do make slowly, and they're often like very literal, like they apply the same feedback to a different situation without nuance. But what does highly actionable look like? Well, people who are highly actionable in response to feedback, they experiment, they iterate, they change behavior, both in response to feedback and also in response to explicit feedback, but also in response to implicit feedback, because they're just thinking about how to be better. They return to the people that have shown up for them with like things they're trying, or things they're trying or things they had a go at, and solicit input on like how it worked. And they seek out perspectives and information to learn more. Now, it is worth noting that we should be in different quadrants with different people. high trust, high respect relationships will be further up and to the right, and like low trust, low respect relationships will be down and to the left. And to a certain extent, this is really healthy, and it's very understandable, right? Well, we can always learn from feedback, even feedback that's given in bad faith. Like, we need to consider some input from like low trust sources more carefully. And when we have people who just really want us to be successful and we can trust what they're telling us, like, that's such a gift. Okay, here's my 5-step plan for being more. Are you all still with me? Is anybody sleeping? No one's sleeping. Do you like the raccoons? Yay! I love the raccoons. I'm always like, giving a talk, I'm like, when I find the right raccoon, like the one in the flowers, I'm like, I believe in this talk now. So anyway, these raccoons are my gift for you. Now, here is my 5-step plan for being more coachable. So first, build your self-awareness. Like, some of us need therapy for this, but one thing I'd suggest starting with is just really thinking about what you can learn from other people. When somebody annoys you, consider what they've triggered in you and what you can learn about that. And look at people around you and think about what they do better than you and how you can learn from that. Second, get a broader perspective. Look outside your team, your organization, your industry, and see what you can learn or apply. Like, tech is not that special, and there is plenty we can learn from other industries. Third, shed your defensiveness. When somebody gives you feedback, don't defend yourself, and instead get curious and see what you can learn. And fourth, if you screwed up, admit it. If you start with what you think can go better and ask people to add to it, you will have a much easier time learning. It is so much easier for people to give you constructive feedback when you've given them a starting point to work with. And finally, ask for advice. This is a magic trick I learned from Claire Liu's blog. It turns out people much prefer to give advice than feedback. Who knew? Now, seeking out feedback is much less threatening if you know when to put it in the bin. You know how they say feedback is a gift? Sometimes it is a gift that you need to return, donate, or put in the trash. Now, usually when somebody gives you feedback, they give it from their perspective. So at a minimum, you can learn what their perspective is. And mining for gold and bad feedback can be worth it in certain situations, but not all of them. So, for example, I do not take unsolicited criticism from men on the internet, just for my own mental health, right? Not because they don't have valid points. It's possible that I am deeply annoying and care too much about DEI. I'm open to that possibility. But like, I just have better things to do than dig through it, So I just decide they're not my target audience, and I'm getting on with my life. But sometimes there is something useful there. Like, I got feedback for years about my voice and my accent. Does anybody think my accent is weird? You can all say yes, it's fine. No, thank you, thank you. You should hear me speak Spanish. It's apparently even worse. But anyway, like, I got this feedback for years, and I was just like, what do I do with it? It just seems really sexist. I need to put it in the bin. And eventually, I learned like what I actually needed to take from it, which is that my pacing is really fast, and I need to learn to slow down. And yeah, you're nodding. I still need to work on this. I know. I'm trying really hard. And like, that was the truth of that feedback, right? And eventually, I found it. Now, bad feedback ignores the broader context, right? It misses the bigger picture. When some man tells me my voice is annoying and doesn't think about misogyny, like, that's just bad feedback. It needs to go in the bin. Bad feedback negates your input, right? Like, has your boss ever not told you what he wanted and then complained you didn't guess correctly? Has this ever happened to anyone? Nobody wants to admit it. There's too many bosses here. Oh, no. Come back. Come back. Okay. There's feedback for both of you in that, and it should be a discussion, not a one-way thing. And finally, bad feedback undermines you rather than helps you be successful. Have you heard of the feedback culture at Netflix? It's in No Rules Rules, and it can seem quite confronting. It's very like direct feedback. But there's this core piece in it that I think we have to talk about. Like, that is direct feedback, yes, but it has to help the person succeed, which makes a whole world of difference. Direct feedback that helps somebody be successful is just like, you can take much harder feedback if you know that's where somebody's coming from. you have surely seen feedback from people where like the intent is to tear the person down, right? You've all seen this? You've not been on the internet? But yeah, and when the motivation is bad, like maybe that's what we learn about the person giving it. You know, you need to put those comments in the bin. And putting somebody down is an example of when feedback is much more about the person giving it than the person receiving it. In those situations, what you learn is just about the motivation of the person giving feedback. And you might learn how to work with them more effectively. You might just learn to avoid them, which is fair. And sometimes the feedback is hard, but there's something you can learn from it. You know, I think the work that we do on ourselves to untangle previous feedback trauma so that we can keep learning is a real gift for our resilience and growth. And like, sometimes we're lucky enough to have great supportive relationships with people who only want to see us succeed. Like, treasure those. Write that person a note too after this. Now, in my coaching practice, I've somehow become the quit your job coach. So many of my clients come to me, they think they need to quit their job and find a new one, and I'm the person to help them do that. And like, some of them do, of course, but not all of them. And I think there is a huge difference between quitting your job because you don't know how to change it and get what you want from it, and quitting from a place of power when you know what you want and you're going towards it. And honestly, I think it's really healthy to think about quitting your job regularly. Like, I like to think about it annually, you know? And I like really think about it, like where I am, what I'm doing, what I'm getting from it, where I want to go, what I might do instead. I'm hitting, like, tomorrow, my 5-year anniversary of my current job. And I think I'm still there for 2 reasons. One is I've seen the organization change. Like, things that I've been frustrated by have shifted over time. And 2, I think I've just got better at like really thinking constructively about quitting on a regular basis, making active decisions about what I'm optimizing for, and if I feel like I'm missing out on something, how to compensate for that. So let's talk about things to pay attention to when you're thinking about quitting your current job. First thing, learning. This is another thing that makes me so sad as a hiring manager when I see somebody's resume and it says 5 years of experience, and then I talk to them and it's 1 year's of experience 5 times over. Has anybody else seen this? I feel so sad for these people, right? In this industry, you need to be continually developing your skills in order to stay current. And if you realize that you're not learning, especially if you're at a point in your career where you really should be, you need to pay attention. It's time you have to think about how to change that. You might change that by finding another job, or you might not, but you need to change it. The second thing is coping mechanisms. When you're learning elaborate political dances or how to build up documentation so you don't take the blame for somebody else's mistakes, you might want to think about whether that energy is being well spent. Like, when you're learning coping mechanisms, these coping mechanisms won't help you in a better environment, and they may actually be harmful. Why is it being like this? Okay. Now, when you feel morally conflicted about hiring, it is a real sign to pay attention. If you think other people deserve better, then it's possible that you do too. And when our job affects our confidence, like, this is advice I got early in my career and I hold it tightly. When we feel ourselves getting smaller rather than bigger, this can be really corrosive. And this is how abusive environments keep people. They make them feel like they don't deserve any better than what they're getting. And they should be grateful for what they have. And finally, when your job affects you physically, you need to pay attention. You will hear the advice that your job won't love you back, which means if you're sick, your job won't take care of you, and you need to take care of yourself. Now, in this market, I think it's really important that we spend some time on these other 2 questions. How hard will it be to find another job, and will that new job be any better? This market is hard. We live in Toronto now, and it is possible that some of the things that are frustrating you in your job are going to be more generally applicable throughout the industry. And this is why I think it's really worth interviewing regularly and understanding what's out there and how the market is shifting. If you think you're underleveled and underpaid, and you go out to the market and you find out that you're not, you need to bring that information back and use it to be less annoyed. on a bad day at work, I do find it really helps me to tell myself that I have a good deal under capitalism. And the only way you know that is if you look at the market regularly. So we're getting to the end, and I'm happy to tell you, if you like this talk, you will probably like my book. And the other good thing about it, it covers like many of the same topics, but there are fewer raccoons. But the thing that's good about it is it's not as 1,000 miles an hour, because I'm still working on this pacing thing. And so here are your core takeaways. So firstly, get clear about what you want. Capitalism tells us a lot of things, and it's easy to go along with them, but take some time to think critically about what is actually true for you. Second, understand the terrain you're operating within. Toronto is a very hard place to be a raccoon, and is a very different life from a raccoon than being an Instagram star. Understanding your reality, your constraints, will help you make the decisions that are right for you. You need a strategy. This isn't a 5-year plan, but a deliberate approach to learning and iterating on your proximate objectives. Fourth, build your raccoon crew. Again, don't be alone in Toronto. And finally, invest in your own learning and development. If you figure out what growth looks like for you, how to have a better relationship with feedback, this can do wonders for your career. Thank you.
Congratulations, Cate. I think
you.
it was a great speech. As a leader and as a manager in the software industry, I learned a lot how to please my colleagues. But we have lots of questions online, so before I give this gift to you, you need to answer those. I did not understand the morally conflicted about hiring point. Does it mean that hiring practices in the company are unfair?
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I think it can mean anything, right? Like, if your company has a job rec and they're like recommendations, referrals, and you're like, oh, I would just start thinking about why that is. If you think the process is bad, tell somebody. You know, if you don't think it's a great environment, like, you know, then think about, yeah, I mean, it's much more like, what would you want for a friend at your organization? Would you recommend it to them? And then if the answer is no, think about why that is. Does that make more sense?
Maybe, we're hopeful.
Yeah,
Hope so.
fingers crossed.
Okay, the work is better than the title, but the title is what brings more money sometimes. How do you balance those two requirements? This is the $1 million question.
I mean, I think it depends how much you care about money, but like also money and the title are not the same either, right? Like, if what you care about is money, then care about money. Like, and go and get the max that you can. The other thing to think about, though, is like, money on what time frame, right? Because like contracting gigs are a good example of this. My partner's contracting between jobs right now. He's never made more money in a job, but like we both know it's not like a great career move for him. So it's like, in this market, a year in a contracting gig makes total sense. But like, does he want to do it forever? No, because he wants to go back to kind of a product role where he can learn and grow.
And also from organization perspective, the time is not allotted to make a promotion because the order is not there. So this is, from the outside perspective, it's not that easy to, maybe you're ready for the promotion, but the management doesn't have a possibility to promote you.
Yeah,
it's also there.
There's a lot of constraints right now.
Okay, another good question. How to encourage people to give us feedback?
Interesting. Asking for advice is really a magic trick. It's so effective. The other thing I think about a lot in this is like explicit versus implicit feedback. So as you go up the org chart, it becomes harder to get people to give you explicit feedback. And kind of by definition, nobody has context on your job, you know? It's like my own situation, right? I have 9 direct reports, and my boss tries to give me feedback, but like the whole point of me is that he doesn't need to know the details of what I'm doing, right? And so all his feedback comes from like a limited context, and each one of these 9 people, you know, 9 is too many. Like, after that would be the feedback they would give me, 9 is too many on some level, right? Like, they also only have this very partial context. And so, like, I think about implicit feedback as like mining the information that I can get from these 10 people to figure out, like, what can I do better within like my human constraints.
You're lucky I have 30 direct reportees. I need to do the same. And recommendations for keeping your patience at your job while waiting for finding the right opportunity?
Ooh, yeah, I mean, I love this question. I want to talk to this person, like, come and find me.
Please come in front after that.
Yeah. I think the main thing is to, like, if you have a definition of what you're going for and you know you're biding your time, like, maybe you have to, like, collect money in order to bide your time. Like, just being really clear about, like, this is what I'm getting from this job right now. And if it is just a paycheck in the interim, that's fine. Like, that can also help you be less frustrated.
That's good. We have 1.5 more minutes for questions. If your manager is not guiding and not giving opportunities, how do you find motivation and energy to reach new goals, especially if your confidence is at a low?
Yeah, I mean, I think if your confidence is low, like, this is the first thing you need. And think about how you can, like, collect some wins. I think when I started blogging, I was in grad school. Has anybody else been in grad school? Yeah, was it also corrosive to your self-esteem and sense of well-being? Yeah, okay, I mean, this is like a known thing about grad school, right? And so I started writing a blog post every week to just, I don't know, be in the world. Because my supervisor didn't talk to me. I would come in to talk to him, he'd be watching football. I'm like, okay. But, you know, like, the internet, people talk to me. So I just started putting up the stuff I was finding, sharing it out, and getting a ton more engagement with it. And that was really good for me. So I think kind of thinking about, like, why is your confidence low? What can you do to improve it? And taking some active steps to get there is, like, job one in this situation. But also this person, come and find me.
Okay, I think without further ado, I would like to give this small gift. And please, another big round of applause for Cate.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure, Cate.
Thanks so much.